Afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Ngosi Talk Show, where we can all come together with having a lovely conversation with our speakers. My name is Clara. I'm the founder of Hope Spring Eternal Introduction Agency and the founder of Ngosi Talk Show. So I have three experts today with me. I'm going to let our experts introduce themselves so they can lay out their professional credentials and expertise. Over to you, Dr. Bigot. Please introduce yourself to our audience.
Thank you very much, Numsa. Thank you. And good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where and when you watch this. And I'm Bajitan, and would you ever love to be able to easily thrive and have the relationship and the work and the life that you really, really love? I'm a grief transformation coach, and what I do is I help you transform your tears to triumph and treasures. And I do that with ease and fun, and I'm an author and speaker as well. And I look forward to be having these wonderful conversations that will be empowering and inspiring to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Bigot. Over to you, Carol Ann. Please introduce yourself to our audience.
Yes, good afternoon here from London, and welcome wherever you are. And yes, my name is Carol Ann, and as the writing facilitator, what I do is I support soul-driven entrepreneurs in becoming more productive with their writing by helping them connect with their deeper innate ability to write. But more importantly, they experience free-flowing writing. They experience an unlocking of the writer within and getting their book written, getting their story written, because you cannot publish what isn't written. And all of this has come about through my own journey of unlocking the writer within. It's been quite an exciting journey, but ups and downs, and it still continues like any journey. But yes, so I'm Carol Ann, the writing facilitator, unlocking the writer within, helping you to unmute your story, unmute your soul's voice, and be heard in the world. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Carol Ann. Over to you, John. Please introduce yourself to our audience.
Thank you, Nomsa. Hello, everybody. I am John Kenny, and I'm the relationship guy. And I am a coach to successful singles who struggle with successful intimate relationships. My background is originally in counselling therapy, and I trained as a counsellor many, many years ago, and then transferred to coaching in 2012 when I had met a coach who said, "You're helping all these people with your counselling, but your life still sucks." So she was able to point me in the right direction. And then I trained as a coach, hypnotherapist, NLP practitioner, and I now mold all of those approaches into one approach called interpersonal relationship coaching. And I help people to understand where they've come from as far as their past is concerned, kind of relationships that they have, why they attract, what they attract in their lives, why they do what they do, and help them to bring the quality relationships that they want. I'm also a published author, documentary maker, and speaker, where I first met Nomsa at a speaking gig a couple of years ago at a relationship conference in London. Thank you very much.
Muted. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, John. So our topic today is how attachment and childhood and this impacts on adult relationships and other mental health issues. So, John, you have chosen this topic. Could you please explain to our audience what does the topic mean, and how does it relate to you?
Yeah, so thank you. I am, as I said, I'm the relationship guy, and I help people to understand the kind of relationships that they attract in their lives. And one of the key factors behind what we attract is our attachment style. So attachment theory is something that first came about 70 years ago, when it was discovered that how we learn to attach to our primary caregivers as children has a massive impact then on the relationships, not only the relationships that we have, but the life that we live when we're adults. There are a few different types of attachment. So we can either have an insecure attachment or a secure attachment. And a secure attachment usually comes from someone that has received love, care, encouragement, security, knows how to bond healthily as a child. And an insecure attachment usually comes from somebody that has experienced something completely different to that. So they felt quite insecure as a child. They may exhibit either anxious traits or avoidant traits. So they learn to deal with things in an anxious way. So you might get a screamy child, someone who won't let go of their parents' legs, tantrums, that type of thing. Generally, that's aligned with an anxious type. An avoidant type person would be someone who kind of removes themselves from situations. So when the pain of a relationship becomes a bit too painful, their brain tells them that it's best to remove themselves and avoid that situation rather than engage with it. And the last type is called a disorganized attachment, or an anxious stroke avoidant type attachment. So that's probably the worst of both worlds, really. So this generally comes from trauma, associated trauma, abuse, neglect in childhood, because although we chase love, we need connection as children, we see our primary caregiver do things, say things that will then lead us to feel very unsafe. It could be we witness domestic violence against a partner. They could abuse us in their own way. And although we feel like we want to be close to them, our brain doesn't feel safe doing that. So therefore we become disorganized in our attachment. And that has not just, like I said, relationship impacts as we get older, but it has a lot of other impacts on certain mental health issues that we see in the general population. And it's around about 40% of the population of the world. And it doesn't really matter where you come from, what your culture is, what your religious beliefs might be. It's around about 40% of the world population struggle with an insecure attachment. You're still on mute, Nomsa.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, John. So I think you've described, I used to be the remover. When things get tough, I have to remove myself instead of working things out. So I put my head up and say, that needs to be me. So Carol Ann, please, would you like to add anything or explain your own understanding with regard to the topic? I can see Dr. Biggett, she's out. What's happened?
Maybe the internet's just dropped her out for a minute. I'm sure she'll be back. But yeah. Interesting, is it that 40% of the population struggle with insecure attachment. And I think this is where I find, as I very often end up working with the inner child around the work that I do. And it has been my own inner child that I've done a lot of work with, and gone back to my childhood and things that have happened. And I don't think we realize we're actually aware of the situation we're in. You grow up in that situation and you're not fully aware of the impact of it. It's because you only know that. And it's only when you sort of step out of that and start opening up and realizing how things were. And I remember one of the things was how I always used to feel like I was treading on eggshells around my mum, and never really thought anything of it as I was growing up. It was just how it was, because I really sort of knew how my mum was going to react to what I was saying or asking her, because when one time she could be all right, another time it would be sort of, explode and sort of be critical. So I sort of always seem to pick my time to speak with her. I sort of feel into the situation before I would say something. And that just became a way of life for me. But it wasn't until I started doing the inner work on myself did I actually realize that I didn't need to be that way. But I was also very much like that with my ex-husband as well. So it didn't help that relationship in as much as I didn't feel I could be fully straight. There was an insecurity there, with sort of knowing, well, what can I say? When can I say it? How are they going to react? And so in a way I was putting that onto him as well. So I think you have to sort of step out of the situation before you can become aware of it. And it's not making it wrong. It's what I've realized with doing all this personal development work and self-discovery is that I actually chose my family and my parents. And I know some people say, oh, we don't choose our family. You can choose your friends, but not your family. Well, at a soul level, what I've come to believe and had that sort of message from within, from my own soul, is that I chose my family for the experience that I was going to get. And so that's how I've been able to sort of work with it, shift things and come to a place of forgiveness, stop making my mum wrong for who she was being and how she was reacting, it's who she was. And there's acceptance there. So I think that's it for now. There's something I'm sort of pondering on, but again, I feel there's something else that's here to be said, but not quite sure what just yet.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Carol. And I think we intend to actually blame our families when things go wrong, because what we forget is, or our loved ones or people around us, what we forget is those people, they are wounded as much as we are. So what we can do is, of course, you can't go around putting up with every situation in life. So you have to love people from the distance without blaming, without judging, because everyone has a burden that they are carrying. The attachment, like John, who you were explaining, how things were, and how I said for me, when things were getting tough, I'll be like, this is not what I've signed for. But it became a better habit. When I mean it became a better habit, that's how I removed myself in all my relationship. This one that I'm with is lucky because I figure me out. So I used to do that. I used to remove myself when things get tough. I'm like, I'll find 1,000 reasons. And sometimes I wanting my family to listen and be on my side, to listen to what I'm going through. But now I just work on myself. When things get tough, I face the situation. So thank you so much, Carol. And Dr. Bigot, we lost you for a minute.
Yes, do you mind repeating the question?
So basically, the question, we're talking about the topic. We're still on the topic bit, how attachment and childhood and this impacts on adult relationships and mentally healthy issues.
Yeah, so to me, I find the topic interesting. In general, one thing that comes to mind when I look at that topic is the word of Buddha, which is Buddhism is more of a way of living than a religion. But Buddha says that all life is suffering. which when you hear that, you're like, oh, that's really sucks. All life is suffering. And at the same time, the complete and some people quote that, but actually what Buddha says, all life is suffering. The root of all suffering is attachment. And therefore, if we really look at everything, a lot of anxiety in this world, a lot of anxiety that you are feeling, it's because you have an attachment to something. And whether it is something with a person, with a way of things, with the way that you prefer things, with an outcome, whatever it is. And then I share it in my book here, actually, Seeking Peace, where I actually meet somebody in quite a while back, earlier in this part of my journey. He was an old man, and he said a very extremely successful one. And at the same time, unlike many successful people who tend to have a lot of stress and this and that, this old guy, he has passed since then, was very like, for lack of better word, I would say he was very zen. He's very calm about everything, and it's a very easy, happy, relaxed energy on with him. Even though at that time he was advanced in age and he has health condition and all this other thing, and he says one of his secret of being able to be that way and live a long life with healthily was to be able to have preference, but not a must. He preferred things to be in certain way. He worked toward it, he endeavored to do the very best he can for it. And at the same time, he knows that if this does not work out, then there is always something else, and whatever that something else, he can make better. And so that's one thing. And then and when that happened, when he learned that, he said he's able to let go of all anxiety. And then we talk about the other form of attachment where you just kind of remove yourself on things. He says, well, if you prefer something, at the same time, if you prefer something, you don't just drop it either. You stay with it and do the very best. So he has a completely different approach, which very interesting to me. And I practice it since then, and actually learn to be able to have a lot more ease and a lot more peace of mind, regardless of what's going on in this world, whether it's something at the magnitude of COVID-19 or it's something at the magnitude of there is a traffic when I'm going to somewhere, and really be able to have a whole lot more ease with having preference, but not a must.
Thank you so much. Anyone who would like to comment on this one, what Dr. Bigot just said, please, guys?
Yeah, I think it's attachment. It's a human condition. We're born to attach to things, mostly to people. But again, it's a learned behaviour, isn't it? It's what we learn as children. Not only how we attach emotionally to people, but how we attach emotionally to things. Generally, the preference that we take forward is the preference that our parents or our primary caregivers will have. And we learn from our environment, from what we attach to. And it's like, as Dr. B said, it's attachment is the root of all suffering. I would say it's probably the root of all pain. What we attach to, the only things we really attach to are the things that can cause us pain, because they're the only things that we give a meaning to when we lose them, or if we don't have them. So I definitely agree with that statement that if we attach something to, or if we are attached to something, or we allow ourselves to give a meaning to that thing, then when it's not there anymore, we will feel a certain amount of loss, which I don't think is a bad thing. I think it shows that we care enough about something if it's not there anymore. And I think it's an inherent human instinct. It's genetic. It's part of our makeup as a species to connect to people, especially. But as I said, we are born with this kind of need to connect in the first place. And when something that we connect to is removed, it's going to cause us a certain amount of discomfort. And it's about being able to manage that discomfort. And that's where like an insecure attachment comes in, because we're not able to manage that discomfort. And that's why this is such an important issue when it comes to relationships when we're adults, and when it comes to the other mental health issues that are associated with attachment. Because if we are unable to manage how we feel about loss or perceived pain, then we will act out in a specific way in order to manage that. So we may be an avoidant type personality, like Nomsa said she was. You remove yourself from the situation, which is what I was as well, but I'd have a slight anxiety kick in as well. So if I felt that something wasn't comfortable for me, my original feeling would be to feel discomfort, which would be slightly anxious, slightly stressed. And then my default reaction would be then to avoid it. So rather than face it head on, rather than know how to deal with it, my brain was telling me just to remove myself from the situation in order to manage that pain. The other associated issues with attachment are depression, anxiety, drug and alcohol problems, eating disorders. The most severe leads to personality disorders such as narcissism, dependency, avoidant personality disorder, borderline personality disorder. So attachment's massive in context of, if we aren't able to manage our own attachment, if we're not able to manage the perceived difficulties of being attached to something, then the outcomes of that can be quite catastrophic. We also have a tendency to choose relationships that are based in our attachment style. So what Nomsa was saying earlier on, when she was in the problem, she would avoid it. When I went into relationships, I'd already decided there was a problem before I'd even got into it, and because I was looking for a way to avoid it. So I would go into relationships looking for an escape route all the time. So when I would meet someone, I'd be go, okay, well, if this doesn't work out, this starts to go too far, I know that I've got this as a reason to walk away. And I was always looking for an excuse in order to manage my own inability to connect with people. And so not only did I choose anxious type people, because I would choose an anxious type attack. Generally, avoidant and anxious people go together quite well. In an unhealthy way, because an avoidant person will generally enter a relationship full on because they really want to connect. You know, like I said, it's a human condition to connect with other people, and we want love, and we want to feel this commitment and be with somebody that we can have this kind of joyous kind of love space with. But it's when it becomes uncomfortable for us that then our avoidant tendencies will then kick in, and we'll start to remove ourselves, because even though we really want something connected, we're not able to allow it for ourselves. And then that will trigger the anxious attachment in someone else. So then they'll start chasing you because you're backing away. And then they might then stop, and then you might go, oh, they're not chasing me anymore, I can then go back and give a little bit more, and then they'll chase you again, and you go around in this repetitive cycle. So anxious and avoidant people have a tendency to go together in a very unhealthy way, but quite well. So understanding what your attachment is will enable you to figure out when you are connected with people, or if it's with something, when that thing isn't there, you'll be able to understand why you're reacting in the way that you're reacting, and then you can think about doing something about it before it kind of goes too far. But you'll see that it plays out as a relationship type pattern, and you'll probably notice that if you have an avoidant or an anxious type personality, that you'll attract a specific type of person towards you all the time.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, John. Carol Ann, have you got anything you like to add? Or
I was just following on from what Brigitte was saying about being attached to an outcome, and not having that attachment but having it as a preference. I like that word preference. I've not sort of heard it used before, but it is recognizing that where you're attached to a certain outcome, this can cause problems, because or even in a relationship, you know, you're attached to, it's got to be this particular person that you want a relationship with. And yet actually it's more about looking at, well, what are the qualities of this person? What is it that you like about them? And then shifting that attachment that it's got to be this person to, well, it can be somebody that is like them, that has these qualities, but it can be somebody else. It then relieves all of that pressure and allows for maybe the someone else to show up who actually is what's the word? I don't want to say better, because I don't use better or worse, but it's the person the relationship would work in a more healthy way, because you haven't got that pressure that it has to be this person. You're allowing for someone else to show up that's got those qualities, but actually could also have other qualities that would help the relationship work more. So I do love that sort of shifting the word from being attached to something, you know, to it being a must, to a preference. It's just that gentle shift. And yeah, it certainly would help your health, because if you're holding on to that, it's got to be this person, you can feel the tension. There's tension, there's stress, and when you have that tension and stress in your body, that's again where ill health comes in, and creates a lot of unhappiness. So it's about finding ways to create happiness, create healthy relationships and health within yourself, and relieve that tension. And but yeah, we are, I think, as a human race, we have this need to attach to something, to cling on. And I think what I'm actually, as I'm doing this, I'm remembering we have primitive reflexes which we have when we're first born, and within that first year of life, that help us to survive. But actually they need to be fully integrated. They do their job, and then they go, and other reflexes take over, which help you to sort of move into more adult responses rather than reaction. And one of them is this sort of grip, holding on. And I often look at that reflex and what are we holding on to, and being able to then let go. So it's finding ways of letting go. And it is something that's inborn, you know, within us, and working with those reflexes, because they control us. But once they've done their job, we then are able to have much more conscious response rather than reaction. So yeah, we're quite intricate, complex beings. And I know the more I've looked into all of this and think, oh, this is the solution, I find something else, and then there's something else. So I've given up going, oh, but this is it, this is the answer, because there's always something else. There's another aspect or another way that somebody has put a spin on the whole way, you know, that we behave and our personalities. And it's just amazing. I just love it. Love the exploration of how complex we are. Yeah. So that's why relationships are quite a complex thing to unpick and to look at. And it all comes back to ourselves, and yeah, understanding how we behave. And once you can do that, it then does help your, you know, who you attract into your life, and then what other relationships you have. And I know we were always a very avoidant family. We would avoid conflict. So again, that's something that I'm becoming a bit more comfortable with, is actually confronting something and being able to speak. And yeah, it's not sort of be angry about something, but actually confront what is there that needs to be confronted, rather than just no conflict, no confrontation. Yeah. So yeah, these patterns are amazing that we pick up, but it's great if you can spot them and then work with them and not make them wrong. I think that's the key. Not make them wrong. There is no right or wrong. There is just what is. And is it working for you, or is it not working for you? Sometimes it works for you because in that moment it is a safety thing. It's what you need. And then you grow out of that. And it's recognizing where you're still holding on to that and go, no, I don't need that. That doesn't work for me anymore. Let me find something that now works for me. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Carol. And I like it when you talk about, when you when it comes to attachment, sometimes when you are choosing a partner or a spouse, sometimes we forget about our desires, our want, because actually I used to date people because I felt sorry for them. I have no idea what was that all about. If I can describe my behavior, then I can't. When I started studying psychology, it was like there was two people, and I was actually undoing every attachment that was within me. And the good thing is, when you say it's good not to make them wrong, just to look at where things have gone wrong and just put it right, and also embracing and looking back. And where I'll pick a spouse, and I wouldn't ask any questions. What norms someone did, it didn't matter. I'll just listen to them. They have a good job. As long as they have a good job, because that's what the society tells us. Finish school and find a good, wealthy man, or a good man who has a good job, give you security, and anything else, it doesn't matter. It didn't matter to me. I would just date a guy because I liked them and the good job. Basically, I would not ask any questions. And even if I see the signs, the red signs at that moment, I will just say to myself, things will get better once I fall in love with them. They're going to do the things that I want them to do. But in reality, it does not work like that. And I can tell you there are some people that are doing it. Like, I've got friends that are doing it. I don't interfere, and I can see my own behavior there. So that's how norms I used to be when I date somebody, or if I wanted this, or if I wanted this, or I like this, I would just date somebody, hoping that because I like this, I like sports, they're gonna change their mind. But a few years down the line, you start getting frustrated because your needs are not met, and because with that person you're not compatible. So those are the things that I had to undo in my life. And also looking back to my childhood, who is Nomsa, and that helped me a lot, because Nomsa, when she was young, Nomsa was able to tell her parents what she wanted. The things that if she wasn't happy, she would explain to her parents that I'm not happy. And the love that, if I wanted love, I wanted cuddles, or sometimes if I wanted my dad at midnight, I get my dad. But in a relationship, I wouldn't express my needs. I wouldn't know. I have no idea what went wrong. I wouldn't explain it. If I can look back now, there was two different people. I don't know where I got that nomsa from. The attachment, where I got it from, I have no idea. And the anxiety, the stress, when you don't live the life that you want, is big. You live a stressful life. That I was lucky, my life never led to depression, but you live a stressful life. So if anyone wants to take over this one, please feel free.
What you said there about the kind of the insecurity that we feel, you know, I was the same as you know. I used to choose people that were very. I mean, it's an insecure attachment anyway. But my need was to be with anxious people, so they were insecurely anxious, and they needed a lot of help. They clearly had issues that were never resolved, and their anxiety was the thing that I was chasing. So I knew that if I got attracted to someone,
And it looks like he's dropped out
Without
on the internet. Yeah.
looks like there's internet. Was that? Did I disappear then?
You did. Welcome back.
It's like magic. It just was me sitting on the screen talking to myself, and then everyone appeared again. Yeah. So I was the same. I would choose people that needed help, you know, because I knew that they had issues that I couldn't fix, that I could do my best, but it was never going to be enough. And that's how I felt as a child. I felt that I was never enough. So I would choose people that had a lot of problems, and then eventually recognizing that I could never help them, I always felt then I was never enough. And that would be trigger my avoidant personality. I would then say, well, if I'm not good enough for you, then I might as well just walk away. But they needed a lot of help, but they weren't able to help themselves because they, again, you know, this was a cycle that was going on in the unknown space of the subconscious, and they didn't know that they needed help. But I knew that my subconscious was picking up on the fact that they did need some help. So I would try and help them, but because it would never work out the way I wanted it to, although actually that's a lie. It always worked out the way that I wanted it to because it triggered my avoidant attachment. So I was choosing them for that reason. I knew that eventually my brain would say, well, you're not enough. You can't make this work. They're always going to have problems. It doesn't matter what you do. They're always going to want more. And so therefore I would then switch on my avoidant type attachment and I would disappear. And then obviously their anxious attachment would kick in and they start chasing me, and it'd just be a real mess. So that's why I used to choose people that had problems, because it fed my subconscious belief that I wasn't good enough, because I would never be able to take away their pain. I would never be able to resolve their issues because it wasn't my responsibility to do that. And it was never going to be something I was able to achieve. So that's generally what people pleasing is. People pleasing is generally taking that opportunity to meet our own needs, to make other people happy, regardless of what the issue might be that they're carrying. And then we'll go and we'll go and we'll go and we'll try and give and we'll give and we'll give, because we want to try and make this person feel better, because we want them to like us, because we want them to love us, but because we also want to feel a sense of fulfillment within ourselves, because it's our need that we're trying to meet. And therefore we'll please and please and please, and then eventually we'll go, I can't keep pleasing you because it's not working. But also then that has a tendency that if you keep trying to please someone, they don't have a tendency to want to please you either, because the relationship dynamic is built on you giving a lot and them taking a lot. And then after a while, as a people pleaser, you then become quite resentful, because you're like, well, it doesn't really matter what I do. You're never giving anything back to me in return. And then you start to shut down from the relationship, and it just really starts to fall apart and can become quite a toxic and unhealthy environment. And when we are able to change that, then we are able to kind of embark on something a bit healthier. But also we just need to make sure that we don't go to the opposite direction. So as I said, my dad was like an anxious type attachment. My mum's an avoidant type attachment. And I was dating my dad for the whole of my life. I was dating lots of women that had anxious attachment types. And when I thought I'd got on top of it all, I then met a lady that I ended up marrying, but she was an avoidant type. So she also met my need not to connect, because whenever I tried to address any issues in our relationship, she would avoid the same that I would. And although I was in a better and healthier space, I was sort of saying, well, we need to resolve this, blah, 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 blah. Her avoidant would go, okay, well, I need to now step away. So what I actually ended up doing was dating my dad my whole life and married my mum. And it was only when I realized that. So when I wrote my book, I went into quite a lot of detail about my own life, which is the first half of the book. The second half of the book is to help you ask questions to yourself that maybe will help you to find the answers that I came to. But while I was writing that book, I really did a lot of soul searching and really got to know myself a lot better. And it was at that point that I realized that I'd gone from one difficult attachment, an insecure attachment, to the next. But because the relationship felt so different, I thought I'd actually turned a corner and I'd met somebody that was going to be kind of someone I was going to be with forever. But I hadn't. What the corner that I turned was, still in my own mind, I wasn't ready to connect. I wasn't ready to be completely committed to somebody and give. So I chose someone who was avoidant like I was, so I didn't have to do that. And then eventually that came to an end, and now we're in a space where I'm completely open and know exactly what I want and where I'm going. And again, it's interesting about these preferences. It is about having a preference, isn't it? It's not about following an expectation. I like to think that expectations are the root of all failure. Because if we have expectations and they don't work out, we have a tendency to feel like we've failed. Or we'll label it as failed because we have an idea about what we're aiming for. And if it doesn't work out, it's about being able to deal with the fact that that's something that we were expecting to happen, but actually, well, maybe wasn't that realistic. And then again, if we've got a difficult type of attachment within ourselves, we don't really know how to manage it when these expectations don't work out anyway. And whereas you say preference, I like choice. I think life is a matter of choice. It's about living a life that you choose rather than living a life you feel like you have to, or that you should, or that's built on expectation that you may have got from your childhood issues that you're carrying up in adult life.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, John. Anyone who wants to add on what John has just said?
I just love what you said about when you wrote your book. You did a lot of soul searching. And I think that, it's what I've come to realize is actually writing a book is a journey, but it actually helps you to find yourself, because there's a lot in writing a book. And a lot of things come up, a lot of beliefs, a lot of expectations. You have expectations about yourself. I'm going to get this done, and it doesn't happen, or certain beliefs then show up. Well, can I actually do this? I don't know what I'm doing. Will somebody actually read this? Will they want to read it? Will they criticize me? So a lot of things like that come up, and I think all of those, you can actually take all of those beliefs and look back. Well, where do they stem from? And look back at your childhood and things that have happened that actually prompted it, and then you sort of lived with that. So I love that. You wrote your book. It gave you a lot of soul searching, but this is, I think, the beauty of writing a book. And more people, I want to say ought to be. I'm making them wrong by saying ought to be, but I think they would find that something would blossom within them if they actually did get down and write that book. Because I know there's a lot of people want to write a book, and I have come to believe that everybody actually has the ability to write a book. We've all got the ability to write. We're just at different levels of achievement within writing, within that skill. Doesn't mean you can't develop it even more, because you can. We've all got a writer within us. We've all got a story within us. And our life, what we've been through for a reason. And it is then being able to share that with other people, because that will have an impact and can make a difference in someone else's life. And if you only actually impact one person, you make a difference with just one person, you've made a difference, because that ripples out around, through their family, through their friends. So you've made a bigger difference than you realize. So, I think maybe more people ought to think seriously about writing a book, and what is that message, what is that story that they have to share, but also allow themselves to go on that journey, that soul searching journey, and really discover who they are. What are the attachments that you've had through your life that have been unhealthy, and now you can create not attachments but preferences or choices, whichever word feels comfortable to you. But it is about letting go of expectations, because yes, having an expectation is the route to failure. It's about having a commitment to an outcome, but not expecting it to be a certain way. So yeah, well done on that journey that you took, John, because that actually does take something. Does take something.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Bigot. Do you have anything you'd like to add?
Thank you, Numsa. Yes, a lot of time, when you are listening to this, you might say, okay, so I'm to let go of attachment. I want to prefer not expecting, and for some reason, for many people, including myself in the past, that could feel like you're losing control. Because it is when you part of the attachment is you want to be able to control the outcome, and you control this and you control that, and you control somebody behavior. Oh, you don't do this and you don't do that, I want you to be this way. And sometimes it's even you control yourself. You want yourself to be this way instead of that way. And so for many of us, when we start learning to let go of attachment and have preference, we feel like we're letting go of control and we're losing control. And it's very interesting, John earlier says, in how you see things and values, because at the end of the day, it is all perception. You can see it, letting go and having preference and endeavoring for it as a loss of control, or you're actually gaining control. Because when you're really truly attached to something, then everything about you is controlled by whatever it is you are being attached to. Imagine if you are attached, if your life is attached to, if you were a monkey, or a squirrel, your life is attached to this piece of wood here, this piece of branch, then you're not going to be able to venture out much farther from this branch that you have to be attached and holding on and gripping on, and which is a normal and a normal behavior. Actually, it's not that it is not a normal behavior; it's a normal reflex and reaction, and which is like what Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross says, that the root of all emotions, there's only two basic emotions, fear or love, and all our other emotions and actions come from that. And so it's fairly normal to say, oh, if I let go of this, I might fall. But at the same time, if you think about it that way, now you're hanging on to something that now you are being controlled. Instead of you controlling what you're doing, you're actually being controlled by the person, by the behavior, by the outcome that you want. And so when you are able to say, okay, you know what? I prefer being on this branch here because I happen to like this branch for XYZ reason. But if the branch starts to suddenly grow thorns and it's no longer serving me, or it's not able to provide the fruit, I know that I can let go and I either learn to jump, grow wings and fly, or get on a different branch, and then you actually, now you truly have control instead of being controlled by whatever it is. And so that's one thing that I discover when I help my clients with this. A lot of people say, oh, it feels like I'm losing control, and you actually gaining control. It's depend on how you see things.
I love that, because what you're saying I can suddenly relate to in something what I remembered was I always used to have conversations in my head before I would pick up the phone or before I go and speak to someone. I would go through the conversation. So it was like I was trying to control the outcome. Well, if I say that, they'll say that. And it never worked out like that. So very often I wouldn't even have the conversation. I wouldn't pick up the phone because there was something in me, well, what if it doesn't pan out like that? Whereas now I've let go of that control. I don't do it as often. Maybe there's a little bit, I'm aware, but certainly not to the level it was before. And I'm much more comfortable at allowing conversations to go wherever they want to go. And it's all about listening, being able to prepare, being prepared to listen to what the other person is really saying and be in the conversation rather than your head trying to control the whole thing.
The expectation.
Yes. Because it's exhausting.
Yeah.
You're trying to fathom out with it. If I say that, they'll say that. And what if happens if they say that? Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and you
It is
have no
exhausting.
idea.
And yet it's so freeing when you can just be with a conversation and just allow it. And I love that expression that Birgit said, grow wings and fly. When you can let go of those expectations and control of a conversation, it's as if a conversation grows wings and flies. And it's beautiful. It's amazing.
I like to say that the only way to actually really be in control is to let go of control. Because then you're just open to any eventuality, then, aren't you? Whatever happens, your brain will say, okay, well, I know that I'm not in control here. I know that, the world is a wide place. I like to call that your window of comfort. So again, if we've got a very narrow window of comfort, we're trying to gain control all the time. And if we step out or something happens which takes us out of this window, then we try and grab everything we can to try and pull it back into this little space. If we've got a nice wide window of comfort, we know that things are going to bother us, but actually we know that, okay, I'm all right, I'm comfortable in this space. So whatever happens, like Dr. Birgit said, I know that I've got a choice here. I can either grow wings, I can choose a different branch, I can do something else here because this doesn't serve me anymore. This hasn't worked out the way I wanted it to do. So I need to jump onto another branch and see what it's like over there. But again, unless we allow that for ourselves, and that's what you I said about resistance earlier on, isn't there? That letting go of control creates resistance because our brain is so used to keeping us in a space what it thinks is safe, comfortable, normal, that it doesn't really like change. And we need to work on that when we're working on ourselves. That acceptance of change is really important, that things change constantly. So the only consistent thing in life is change. So that we need to be able to know that, so that it opens us up to every eventuality. It doesn't mean we don't have plans. It doesn't mean we don't set goals, have intentions, or head off in a direction that we want to go into. But we need to be open to that idea that, okay, things will go wrong. It won't really work out the way I want it to. This conversation on the phone might not necessarily be as comfortable as I want it to be. But I'm going to be okay, and I can manage that because I just need to know that I am in control by not trying to be in control. Again, when it comes to attachment, very difficult thing to do. If we are attached to an outcome, attached to a person, attached to a thing, and it doesn't work out the way we want it to, our perception of that thing then creates an emotion with us. It's interesting what you said, the quote there about love and fear. I like to think of it as love and loss, because I think loss is the key to fear. It's when we are, it doesn't matter who it is, what it is, it's if we have a fear of loss, that then we find it a real struggle. And I think that's a real thing also that we need to look at when we're trying to move forward in our lives, is what am I frightened of losing? And why am I frightened of losing it? Because maybe, again, loss is a fearful thing. We don't really know how to manage it. And it creates a lot of discomfort and difficult feelings for us, which then extend out into anxiety, depression, anger, whatever else that we might experience when we're trying to deal with that idea of loss.
It is good you guys are touching about control. Control, I think it was one of the problems that I struggle with. If things don't go my way, I'll be really, really stressed and asking why this thing hasn't. So, when you do your personal development, you learn to let go of things that you don't have control over. You start being grateful for what you have, that moment, that present moment. So I actually, when somebody talks about what if things go wrong tomorrow, I'm like, I don't want to hear it. Even with my children, I'm like, I don't want to talk about tomorrow. Can you tell me about what's happening today? Because if I start Googling what's going to happen tomorrow, I can write my goals. This is where I need to go, and know that with my goals, there's going to be challenges. There's going to be so many things, mountains that I have to climb. But I don't want to hear about problems that are going to happen tomorrow, because sometimes we worry about things that will never happen. So even like here in Ghost Talk Show, I just go with the present moment. I know my goals, I know where I need to go. But before, I will just start wondering, what if this doesn't work out? What if this? What if this? What if this? And I just don't worry about things anymore. Even in my relationship, I just smile. When you see me, I love my music. I just play my music and see my neighbors. I'm like, hello. When somebody tells me bad news, I have to say, can I control this? Is there any part that I can play? Because every part, there's a part that you can play by helping. But if you can't help it, I'm like, I put my hands up. I'm like, I'm not gonna stress over this. Sometimes I just do something and do exercises, or I smash the books and say I'm aware of these problems until my feelings. If I start sweating, that means it's gone. That means that problem is gone. No one is gonna hear about it anymore. Honestly, I have sticks. I have everything. I smash the pillars. I smash and smash and smash. That means no one gets to get anxiety in this house. Only the pillows, only the books, only the sweat for me. And that means it's done. And I found the solution. If I can't find the solution, I just have to keep manifesting for me to find the solution. But before, I wanted to fix everything. I thought I was a God who can fix everything. But I realized that I'm not. I cannot. There's some things that I can fix, but there are things that I can't. And with my relationship with my children, they want to try something. I'm like, if it makes you happy, go for it. And they're like, are you not going to say no? I'm like, nope. If I can afford it, go for it. If I can't, let's see, let's have other plans. That's how I live my life now. The smile, the anger, the angry. If I'm angry, I'm upset. I don't get angry. I get upset or disappointed. I just say I'm aware what I'm feeling right now, but I'm not going to let you control me, you anger or you whatever is going on. So you have to face it, but before I will avoid it, thinking when I get up in the morning it's gonna be fixed. I will still be there. So we are running out of time. Anyone who has anything they want to add?
So yes, talking about control and attachments and and all this, I would say I called myself I'm a recovering control freak. Everything that you described here, I was a level above that, or probably 2 or 3. Even in my professions and everything else, being on ontologies and so forth. So and until I had a challenge. I had a bit of a challenge letting go until I met my meditation teacher, who says, really, if you think about it, the only thing you can control is your mind. You cannot even always control your body, but you can control your mind. You can get hurt, something can happen to your arm, your legs, your what have you, but the only thing you can truly control is your mind. So if you are a control freak, then practice and start controlling the only thing you can truly control, which is your mind, and you can choose where your mind wants to go. Is it to the worry? Is it to the avoidance? Is it to the imagining of what if the worst happened? Or are you going to allow your mind to say, okay, I'm going to control the only thing I can control, which is my mind, and remembering these attachments, these conversations, and not being attached, also not being avoidance, as well as not trying to control and fix every other person in the universe. And so I find that an advice that I still go back to from time to time. So like, that's right. The only thing I can control is my mind. So let's control my mind and not just run to Pluto, imagining what might happen, knowing that in studies shows that at least 85% of what we worry about never happen.
Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah, the only thing you can control is your mind. I like to think the only thing you've really got control over are your thoughts. So when it does come to attachment, I think there's two things. I think it's awareness, and then being able to say, okay, I'm now in control of my thoughts around this. I understand why I feel the way that I do. I understand why I'm thinking these things, and I understand why I would usually react in a certain way because of the meaning that I'm giving to this situation. Because if we don't give something a meaning, we don't generally do anything with it. If I could have a thought, say we would have a conversation about football. If you don't like football, when I start talking to you about football, because you don't give it a meaning, then you're not going to have an emotional response to it. And if you don't have an emotional response to it, then you're not going to react or behave in to that environment. Whereas if we're having a conversation, like a conversation, we're both really interested in something, the meaning that you give it will determine the reaction that you have to it, because the emotions that you exhibit. So that awareness of the meanings that you give to things, so especially when it comes to attachment, it's about saying, okay, I'm aware that when this happens, or as Dr. Virgie said there, the things I'm worrying about are never going to happen anyway. But my fear is that this is going to happen. Therefore, we can sort of then check in with our thoughts and, like you said, control your mind to say, okay, this is very unlikely. I like to think of possibility and probability. It's possible that I could look out my window now and some aliens could be having a little picnic on my lawn. But probably that's not going to happen. So when we think about these types of things, okay, it's possible that this could happen. But if we live in a world of possibility, then we're always in 100% of this could happen. If we live in a world of probability, then we go, okay, it's possible, but it's very unlikely. And I don't actually know anyway what the outcome's going to be. So I can take a step back. I can get control of myself here. I'm aware of what might be triggering, and then I can choose to do this a different way.
Have you got anything to say, Carol Ann?
No, I think I'm complete, and I feel what's been said, is complete for me. So great conversation. Enjoyed it.
What a lovely feeling to be complete.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is.
Words of encouragement, Dr. Birgit, please, to our audience.
Thank you, Namsa. Yes, my word of encouragement is that as once you learn to be a master of your thought, everything is possible, including letting go of what you choose to let go, and have an even easier and more peaceful life, regardless of what sort of things going on outside of you.
So much. Thank you so much, John. Any words of encouragement, please?
Yeah, I just echo there what Dr. Beardy just said. I think to become self-aware is very important. So if you are struggling with anything that we've discussed today, if attachment is an issue that you know is in your life and it's causing you to experience difficult relationships over and over again, or that you know that there's things in your past that maybe you haven't resolved, to become aware of what they are, and then that gives you the choice to then choose a life that you want to live.
Yes, so much. Carol Ann, any words of encouragement?
Yeah, I think don't make it right or wrong. You know, yes, become self-aware. That is the key, and that is really important. But don't make it right or wrong. Just, is it working or not working? It's a completely different energy, a different way of thinking about it, and yeah, so it also stops you from making you wrong as well. So yeah, just, there is no right or wrong. There is what is, and it's either working or it's not working, and you have a choice to change it. And if you can't do it on your own, seek support, because there are many people that can support you on the journey. And enjoy the exploration.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone who is watching. If you like the message on the video, please press some love button and share with everyone else. We are here Monday to Friday, 1 p.m. Gossip Talk Show. Please join us every 5 days a week. And our topic today was attachment. So if you feel that there's a part of you that is not complete because of your childhood, or because of the attachment from your childhood that is affecting your adulthood, that is affecting your mental health problems, we have coaches from all walks of life. So you can get in touch with them through this email at the bottom of the video, and conduct Kamal. He will be able to connect you with the speakers that you desire. Everyone has a choice and a preference, as John says. So we have about 30 speakers. So whoever you prefer to work with, you can just say the names. 30 minutes free consultation to find out whether you guys can connect, and just work on your life, and not being that control, wanting to control everything in life, or not being able to communicate your wants, your needs, and emotionally you're bleeding inside because you are not talking to people about your want. So please get in touch with us and live with grace, everyone, and God bless you. Okay.